viral Steve Harvey voiceover of Every Man Needs, was it five suits, so seamless, and he showed all the versions of a suit.
2.8 million likes, over 60 million views.
Jeez.
Yeah. It was at like maybe 25,000 when I posted it.
Yeah.
After maybe like a week and a half, it shot up to 300,000, 400,000. I'm like,
week and a half.
Like, when is this gonna stop? I actually started the Passion Project. God called me to fast social media for 6 months.
See, that's what I wanted to get to.
Success has a way of tempting us like struggle doesn't. Posture I always try to take in my success is that I don't want to have to be slapped in the face to figure out I don't have it figured out.
Yes, that's the scary part.
Yeah.
You could be actually failing, but people think you're winning because of a number count. How does your business make money? How do you make a living from content creation?
So how it works for me in my personal business is...
Welcome to the Faith Hustle podcast, where we help young Christian entrepreneurs learn how to build their business and their careers God's way. My name is Makwenda. I'm your host. I've been an entrepreneur for almost 10 years. And in that time, I have been mentored and guided by some of the most successful entrepreneurs that were not just incredible in the marketplace and in business, but in their relationships with the Lord and their families. And that's what we aspire to and strive for here at Faith Hustle, is holistic success. We teach on 5 pillars here at Faith Hustle: on being spirit-led, on integrity, on humility, on generosity, and of stewardship. Those are the things that we believe make up someone that has a faith hustle. If that describes you, that's something that you are also in a journey of. We encourage you to subscribe to the podcast wherever you may listen to, whether it be Apple or Spotify or YouTube, and leave us a review. Those reviews help tremendously, and we just appreciate you being along the journey with us. And this is a new location. We're still filling it out, but we are in our actual Faith Hustle studio. We're not sharing any spaces anymore. This is our space that we've been cultivating. And so over the next few episodes, you might see stuff adjust and change, but we're excited and about what God's doing in this new space. And on today's episode, I got my brother. I had followed him actually for a minute on social, like for I'd say like a year and a half. Then found out we go to the same church, and he's just been a blessing to me. Been inspired by his life, not just by the accomplishments and content and different things that he's made, which we'll get into, but just by the life he leads and the integrity and his heart for the Lord, heart for family. He's an incredible man of God, and someone that definitely you should. You got to tune in on this one. It's going to be really, really good. I got LaDarius Campbell. Come on, man.
What's going on, man? Thanks for the intro. That was really sweet.
Dude,
appreciate
come on,
it,
man.
Appreciate
Dude,
it.
For real, man. I've been following you for a minute. I listen. I would not say I am fashionable, but I try.
I like the shirt. I like the shirt, man. That's nice. That's nice.
I wish I knew where it was from to give a shout out. But I try to put a little piece, and especially we go to Shoreline City.
Absolutely.
I've had to buy clothes.
Fashionable church.
I've had to buy more clothes.
Absolutely.
Going there because I'm like, I stick out like a sore thumb.
No, seriously. Shoreline, we love the style. We love the style.
Everybody's got the baggy pants and the baggy. I was like, man,
Yeah.
I'm going back to like 2000 Sean John era. Like, maybe not Sean John.
Not Sean John.
But man, Rockaware
for sure.
Yeah, exactly. But anyways, man, dude, so glad you're here, man.
Glad to be here, man. Seriously, it's a blessing.
Yeah, man, dude. So I want to get right into it. How I first saw your content on Instagram, and I probably think for most people, a lot of folks,
absolutely,
was your like viral Steve Harvey voiceover of Every Man Needs, was it five suits?
That's etched into my brain,
dude. Yeah, I mean, and I'd never seen an edit so smooth.
Wow.
Like, especially like on a reel, and like it was so seamless. And he showed all the versions of a suit, and it was like, I think that thing has like, is it 2.8 million views, likes or something like that?
Yeah, 2.8 million likes, over 60 million views.
Jeez.
Yeah, crazy.
That's just Instagram.
That's just Instagram. It's about like 30 million views on TikTok. Yeah, so it went crazy, crazy.
So I want to talk about that, and obviously I want to get into your story.
Yeah.
Because what it sounds like to me, and we sat over lunch. It wasn't like you were planning to necessarily go viral.
Absolutely not.
But so tell me about that moment, then we'll kind of jump into it. But I'm really curious about that.
So how that moment came to be is funny because I had been in the space for about a year and 2 months prior to posting that, and I was posting consistently weekly up until that point. And one of my friends from college, her name is Gloria. Shout out to Gloria.
Come on, Gloria.
Because she saw the work that I was doing on social media, and she DMs me this audio of Steve Harvey, and it's like every man has to own a black suit.
Yeah.
After you get a black suit, and I was like, God has gifted me with this like ability to like see something to completion and work backwards to like actually create it. Right.
Yeah.
So when she sent me the audio, I saw the video like to completion.
It was there. You saw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she was like, you should make a reel to this. I was like, I see the reel in my head, and it happened to be the week of my birthday. So I created the video, posted on that Saturday like I always post. I posted every Saturday at 10 a.m. And I posted the video, and like within the first hour, the numbers that it was getting was like greater than anything I had posted prior to that. And it like just continued to just like snowball over time. Like just, it would not stop. My following was at like maybe 25,000 when I posted it.
Yeah.
I want to say after maybe like a week and a half, it shot up to 300,000, 400,000. I'm like,
week and a half.
Like, when is this gonna stop? And what's crazy?
Hold up. I'm curious. Okay, 2.8 million likes. Did your phone just did you have to like turn off notifications?
Yeah, eventually. And they're still off to this day. Like I don't.
Because that would like burn up my phone.
Yeah, like it was nonstop.
That's
on
nuts.
Both platforms, on TikTok and Instagram.
That's
I was like,
crazy.
I think I had 1,700 followers on TikTok before that. I'm at over 500,000 now. It's like it was crazy, man. It was crazy.
Man,
yeah.
So you post it, and obviously like you're into fashion. That's your thing. That's kind of been your focus. Mm-hmm. What led you to that? What led you to even want to make content? And obviously it's your business.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you call yourself as far as your business? Is it more just fashion?
Mm-hmm.
Would you call yourself an influencer? Like, what would you describe yourself?
I would say professionally, I'm a digital marketing specialist, but I would also say that I'm a men's fashion and lifestyle content creator and influencer.
Got it.
From a title perspective, for sure. And what led up to me creating content and like creating my own business was initially my passion for fashion. I've always loved fashion, always loved it, but in 2018 to 2019, I had a significant shift in my life. I was single bachelor living downtown to becoming a husband and a father.
Wow. In 1 year.
In 1 year.
Man.
And I'm having to move in with my wife, learn how to raise a kid, learn how to be a husband. And like that happened so quickly that I needed something for myself, just for expression.
Yeah.
Like, and I was a part of a Bible study that I'm still a part of now called Lit Bible Study, and I was leading the men in that group, and I was expressing like, things happen so quick, yada yada yada. And this guy, his name's Dante. Shout out Dante. He was like, "You need a passion project. Sounds like you need a passion project." And I'm like, "What? Okay,
yeah,
cool. What is it? Like? I don't know what that could be about." But eventually I got to a point, actually backing up a little bit, before I actually started the passion project, God called me to fast social media for 6 months.
See, that's what I wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Because that was fascinating to me. Like the Lord had you just like halt and stop.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you were just going. Like the Lord specifically asked you to just go on a fast.
Yeah.
Have you been listening to this podcast and thinking to yourself, man, I want to start a faith podcast too? Well, guess what? You can. It's never been easier than ever to start a show and to get it out to the masses to make an impact for God's kingdom. But it's also never been harder. 90% of podcasts don't make it past episode 3, not because there's a lack of good ideas. There is a lack of good foundation of what makes a great show. Making a great show is actually an art. It's actually a skill But good news is it's a skill that you can learn. That's why I put together a free resource for you that explains the 5 things every podcast needs to make it a great show. It's a quick read, but it will be the difference of your podcast going the distance and making an impact. Now more than ever, do we need more faith-based podcasts that enter into the space to be a light into the darkness. And I believe this resource can be your first step. All you got to do is hit the link in the description below and I'll send it to you for free. Now let's get back to the episode.
2018, 2019, I'm new to fatherhood. And after that, the pandemic happens. And that's when he told me to fast social media. It was mid-year. I remember it was mid-year he told me to fast social media. So I'm a new husband, new father, moving in with my wife, learning how to be a dad. The only entertainment I really have outside of my family, because the world is shut down, is social media.
Right.
And guys like, put it down.
Wow.
For 6 months, the rest of the year.
Man.
And I was like, okay, I'll do it.
I turned my IG off for a week and I was like,
yeah. And but what's crazy though is like in that 6-month period, I think that it was so intentional of God because I needed that time to be in an incubator almost, to learn how to become a father, to learn to cleave to my wife, to learn my identity in Christ on a deeper level in that 6-month period.
Right.
And I think it's crazy that the thing that he called me to put down is a thing that he would eventually use to create as much abundance as he has. But it's like, I think he needed to know that I can surrender this to you. So when I do prosper you in it, you won't put it above me.
Right. It's funny you say that. I was listening to another podcast, and it's more like comedy. Yeah. And this guy who he's comedian, he's got millions of followers. Yeah. And he's 41. He blew up when he was 38. Wow. Now he's already been married. I think he's in the military 20 years. Mm-hmm. Kids, and he was just saying in the interview, he's like, I am so grateful. I blew up, whatever you want to call it, went viral when I was already secure as a 38-year-old man. Absolutely. Rather than a 21-year-old that doesn't have any foundation. Now, listen, maturity does not have an age.
Yeah, absolutely not.
You could be, I've seen way more mature 21-year-olds than 40-year-olds. But I think there is something to be said of especially because influence can be such an idol. There's a lot of idols, right? You can make anything can become an idol, but it can be such a drug that I think in so many ways, in the same breath of why we tithe, why we rest in a Sabbath. I think there is something to be said of if you're not careful, that thing will control you. Absolutely. And so you go on this fast for 6 months, then God's like, all right, go. Yeah.
I think that, so back talking to what you just said, because that really spoke to me about having that foundation before you blow up, before the success comes. That really ministers to me because I do value that 6 months so much because of how anchored I was able to get. But also I think that success has a way of tempting us like struggle doesn't. I think that success really makes us feel like we have it figured out. Wow. And then it takes a slap in the face to realize you don't. And for me, one thing that I've always done, or the posture I always try to take in my success is that I don't want to have to be slapped in the face to figure out I don't have it figured out. Yes. And I stay in the posture of God, show me. Right. Instead of God, take it away to show me that I'm doing it wrong. Yeah, right? Yeah. And I think that that's a very important thing because when you have success, you do tend to be like, I'm it. I have it figured out. Yeah. I did this. I have this going on. And it's the highs are high, but those lows, they hit like nothing else. So I think that for me, it's important that I took that time away to establish that anchoring in my identity with Christ so that when this came, it didn't shift who I was from a very internal perspective. Because social media, man, ever changing, things are always changing. The algorithm is always changing. Sometimes you get a lot of likes, sometimes you get a little likes, sometimes you get a lot of views, sometimes you don't. And it's if you aren't anchored, you will flow in the wind. Yes. If you don't have that anchored identity. So I definitely... that resonates with me a lot.
It's so funny you say that. I literally was just reading this week Philippians 4, and obviously we know the famous verse of like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yeah.
Right? The whole, everyone gets it out of context for the most part. It's like, it's talking about contentment.
Yeah.
It's not even talking about ambition, but I've read it before, and, Paul says, I've learned the secret to being content. And it's like, I'm paraphrasing, I've had nothing. And I've also learned how to be content in abundance. And I looked at that, I was like, rarely do we talk about being content with like, hey, very little, like, you're struggling, on food stamps, whatever like that, be content, whatever. You rarely hear someone talking about being content while you're on the mountaintop. Yeah. And like you said, I think it's actually harder. Yeah. Because if you're at the bottom, there's nowhere lower to go. Yeah. You're there. Like, okay, bet. But like, take me higher, yeah. But it's when you're higher, it's like I feel like there's just more temptation, like you said, to think you did it. Yeah. Like even out of transparency, like this podcast, like we hit a great swing momentum. And I'm not even talking like numbers, like it was steady, but it was more like the impact, and we're getting texts and emails and messages of people like from all over the world, like man, like I'm getting inspired by this. I listen to it every week. And then matter of fact, Jason's here. The Holy Spirit spoke to Jason and said, we should do a Sabbath month. And I was like, my first initial spot was like, no, we got this momentum. Like we gotta, hey, pedal to the metal. Come on, baby. Like that's my drive. I'm like one lane go. Yeah. In my nature. Yeah. And the Holy Spirit like just so softly whispered. He said, whose momentum did this? He said, who built this? That's crazy. And I was like, you got me.
And what's actually funny is we met during my Sabbath month.
Yes, we did.
And I'm the first person on the podcast after your Sabbath month.
Yeah, no, for real.
That's not coincidental, bro.
No.
That's crazy.
Not at all.
But as you were talking about the mountaintop and the valley moments, right? And like how we talk about being content in the valley but not in the mountain. I thought I had a visual, like an actual visual about perspective and focal point. And I looked at like a valley and like how pretty is it to look around in a valley, right? It's you don't really want to look around at that.
Right,
so you kind of tend to like focus on what's above the sky.
Yeah.
It looks the sky is where you can look to for hope. For like, that's the focal point. That's Christ. Yeah. And it's like when you're on the mountaintop, the view's kind of nice. Yeah. You're looking around like, man, I have a lot to look at. So it can almost capture your focal point to be off of looking above when you were in the valley to looking around. Wow. Right? And the focal point changes. Yeah. And that's where the temptation lies. It's like your focal point begins to be the view and not the things above.
That's good. That's so good. And it's, I mean, my brother Jesse Bazinski, shout outs to him. He's always I'll just tell him different wins, different moments. God did this, got this. When I got this space, I texted him a picture of it. He was one of the first that knew, and he's always says, "Brother, so proud of you, celebrating you. Stay low. Stay low." I could show you the text. Stay low. Every win. He's like, that's amazing. Stay low. Stay low. Like get yourself low, and you'll be good. Yeah. And I think it's a good. And someone I can hear someone right now like, all right, get to the business part, and we are gonna get to more practical stuff. Yeah. But this is actually matters. Yes. Because we make so many decisions out of haste, out of trying to keep up our status or keep up this thing that we built, especially on social media, like when it comes to content creation, like, or to keep up with a trend or keep up with this. And if we have no foundation that we're secure, if we're not content at all, content in our content, we'll and here's the thing, like, we'll crumble, but nobody knows that we're crumbling. Nobody will know. Like that's the scary part. Yeah. You could be actually failing, but people think you're winning because of a number count.
Absolutely. And it's like the focal point needs to, like, this is foundational things that when you honestly experience the love of Christ, when you honestly experience God's character, you will begin to realize while the practical stuff matters, while the trivial success matters, right? The thing to rest on, the thing that you carry in the midst of every season is that very thing. So I think that, you may be like, get to the business, get to the practical, but it's like, I'm telling you, somebody who is thriving in my business, what has not changed is me wanting to be in right standing with God, wanting to experience his love, and knowing that no matter what my business is doing, good or bad, that is going to be what sustains me no matter what.
That's
so
good.
I think that, yes, we are going to get to the practical things that has added to my success, but nothing has added to my success more than being anchored the way that I am.
Man, that's good, man. It's so necessary. And again, like we're about to get into the business side, but this foundation stuff is key. Okay,
that's
so
important.
Explain to someone that, because I mean, I don't think we've ever been in an era where more people, especially like younger people, like if you ask them what they want to do, content creation, YouTuber,
it's
podcaster,
a dream job now, man.
It's so maybe kind of walk me through, like, how does your business make money? How do you make a living from content creation? Do you have any other outlets from that? Like, are you more leveraging your platforms for other business ventures, or is that the business itself? I'd love to hear kind of mechanics of that, because someone might be watching and be like, I'm curious of how to get into that. Yeah.
When I tell people like I'm an influencer, I feel like they don't take it seriously. Like hobby. Okay. And what else?
Yeah.
So how it works for me in my personal business is my primary income comes from endorsement deals.
Got it.
And brand partnerships. So I would say 97% of it is inbound.
Okay.
So I don't really like reach out, call, like I don't do that. It's usually inbound, and how that works is, people reach out for a set number of deliverables, whether that be videos and reels, whether that be, stories. Carousel posts on Instagram, and then from there there's a price point associated with producing those. There's a lot of semantics involved with like at what capacity the brand can utilize the content that I create, because of course there's a price for how much I charge for posting it to my page, but like what about them using it for organic usage or paid usage for like to run ads with the content that I make. So it's a different price points for different things for me. That's my primary line of business. Earlier this year, God blessed me with the opportunity to be able to design a collection with JCPenney.
Come on.
It was 27 pieces. This shirt is actually one of the shirts I designed.
You designed that?
Yeah.
Dude, that's right.
Like my name is on the back of this shirt.
Shut up.
But
come on now.
Yeah, so 27 pieces. They sold it in 150 stores nationwide.
Shoot.
And that was a subset of content. Like it was content adjacent. So of course I created content to like get the word out for the collection, but that was a different, opportunity that I never experienced before, but it was very enjoyable. A different way to service my audience, to create something that I see a need for was a different level of service for my audience. So, there's things that kind of come that are like not necessarily just like brand partnerships that come. I also do a lot of this app called LTK.
Okay.
Like to know, and it's like a third party where you kind of list certain things, like certain items and products for people to shop for directly, and you get commission based off of like, how much percentage a certain brand is paying on like those sales and those purchases. So that's like another like passive income that I use, but that's pretty much the mechanics of how my business generates income.
Gotcha. Okay. No, that's I did not know that you had your own clothes at JCPenney.
For sure.
That's
27 pieces, man. It was great. Flew to New York and designed it myself.
Really?
Yeah.
Had you ever designed pieces before?
So I had a clothing line called La Vie when I was younger.
Sounds French.
Yeah, it means the life.
Okay, in French?
In French.
Hey, let's go.
Life. Yeah, and but it was like the monogram T-shirt. So we never got to a point to like actually creating like more that we wanted to.
Right.
But that was like the extent of my design experience, but this was a whole different level, like going from scratch, like flying out there, feeling the fabrics, picking the colors, picking the designs, like getting things drawn. It was just from start to finish, it was different. I never experienced anything like it, but like to see how well it did, it was encouraging, man. It was encouraging.
What I love about that, and what I think can inspire someone is like, because you mentioned all this started from a friend saying, hey, you need a passion project. This was already a set passion and a set skill you had.
Yeah, for sure.
Of fashion.
Yeah.
And you used it, shared your wisdom, and that wisdom is generating into wealth and into finances. And I think in this new age of business, at least from what I've seen, it is a lot of turn your wisdom into wealth.
Yeah.
Like, and utilize that. And I feel like a lot of people they don't feel like, I was actually just talking to a buddy of mine Derek Ortiz, shout out to him. He's going to be on the show too.
Okay.
He's a designer.
Okay.
Incredible designer. He started making content seriously like this year. Went from like, I think it was like less than 10,000, maybe like, I don't know, 5,000 followers or whatever, to like almost 100,000.
Wow.
In like 6 months.
Wow.
And just sharing his tips on design and stuff. And we're talking through some different things that he wants to do. And he's like, man, I feel like silly, like maybe charging for this or talking about this, because I feel like, well, doesn't everybody know this? Or like, no, so they don't. I promise you. It takes me so much. I go on his page to see if, does this look good with this, or this outfit go, like, what your wisdom is not necessarily known to everybody.
No, seriously.
But I think we take ourselves out of the game. I will say I take myself out of the game of thinking what I know everybody else knows, therefore I can't own that space. I can't go all in on it.
Yeah.
What helped you did you ever deal with that, or just like, no, like, this is just my passion, I'm going to talk about it? Did you ever feel like almost like not inferior, but like, you know, like, oh man, this is just my fashion. Like, who, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that, so first of all, like, common sense is not as common as you think. First of all, like, let's say that, like, that is absolutely true, and we discount what we think people know. I want to second that for sure.
That's good.
For me, I don't think I necessarily dealt with like kind of feeling inferior or like, you know, my wisdom isn't worth X, Y, and Z, because I didn't have a focal point of like, hey, I want this information to produce this. I was just going from the vantage point of, you know, expression. I think that maybe starting out, I didn't feel that way. I think that we all kind of have imposter syndrome at a certain capacity, right? And I think that came thereafter. Once it did become a business, once it did start producing XYZ, you know, advocating for my worth was kind of more so the thing that I struggle with a lot, because I'm like, okay, like I was doing things on my own. I joined the agency for a small amount of time, and then, you know, I went out on my own again, and seeing what the agency thought I was worth was just like really eye-opening, because I was like, you know, I can charge this for, you know, things that I've been doing. I've been doing this for a year. You've been doing it your whole life. Yes. Like, I'm going to dress well. I'm going to dress nicely.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
That's just like,
if you pay me or not.
Yeah, like, period. I'm going to do that. So it's like, to think that and to see that in real time, people were willing to pay for something that I am naturally good at it was very interesting. And it's like, now as I've grown into it, I see how uncommon my perspective on fashion as a whole is, because my passion for fashion came from scarcity. It came from not having a lot of clothes to wear, because I was raised by a single mom who didn't have a lot to give us. So I had to make my clothes look different to make people think that I wasn't wearing the same thing over and over again. And when I started my brand, it was about range, right? Which is how to wear multiple things and versatility, right? So the tie-in is all there, because I was speaking to the version of myself who didn't have a lot. So how do you do a lot with a little? So I think that vantage point coming from scarcity, I was like, how does this create abundance?
That's so good.
Yeah.
Scarcity produces creativity.
Yeah, in abundance. Yeah, seriously.
And so I guess kind of get into some mechanics. So someone starting, they're into design, maybe they're into fashion themselves or music. What would be your first advice of like, okay, how to turn your wisdom, your expertise into wealth or into content creation that can turn to an audience? What would be your first kind of, hey, do this? Okay,
I would say first it does start with a mindset. I think the first thing is to realize that what you have is valuable before you do anything. Realize that your wisdom, your knowledge, your perspective is valuable. It's unique. It's one of a kind. One phrase I live by in this oversaturated market is there's no such thing as an oversaturated market when you're being your authentic self. And because there's only one of you.
Right.
And that'll be the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is to commit before you start.
Wow.
So when I was starting out in my journey of content creation, even though it was an expression, passion project type thing, I committed to something before I started. So I said to myself, I'm going to post a video every Saturday at 10 a.m. 100 times. I don't care what it yields me. I don't care how it looks. I don't care. I'm just going to do it 100 times.
No matter what.
No matter what. And I started with execution and commitment in that way. Just the same as like when you get married. It's like, okay, like I'm married forever when I make this commitment. So I'm going to shape the way that I act based on the commitment that I made before I actually go into it, right?
You preaching, Doc.
So I committed to 100 videos. So if I was getting likes, 100 videos. If I was getting 0 likes, 0 views, 100 videos. So I think that like my advice would be is to focus on execution and not results. I think that a lot of times we focus on results and think that like, oh, I want to get this many views and this many likes, and it's like we start executing trying to get the results, and we don't get the results, and then we get discouraged, so we stop executing. When you have to define success as not the result you get from what you execute, but for executing in itself. Whew. And I think that that's where sustainability lives. That's where you being able to know that what I have is valuable, and I made a commitment, so I'm going to execute that success. When you push the share button, there's nothing you can do.
You can't control it.
You can't. So you have to control the narrative within your own mind to be like, execution is where success lies, not whatever it turns into. And I guarantee you eventually, as you continue to give yourself to the execution, the results will come, but they're a byproduct, not what you like weigh your success on. And I'm not going to sit here and say that like I'm not somebody who I get discouraged when things aren't going well. Like I feel those feelings, but I believe that, you know, I don't allow that to discourage me in the long run. I feel like it does sometimes create doubt in my mind, and doubt will inevitably visit you, right? It will inevitably knock on your door to come and try to visit you. Right. That is not a choice. That just happens.
It just happens.
But
comes with
what is a choice is if you decide to let it in and how long you let it in and how comfortable you make it when it comes to visit you.
Whew.
So
that's good.
For me, it's, hey, Doubt. What's up?
I see you.
But I'm busy executing right now, so you can't come here right now. Good. The Bible talks about taking every thought captive and making it obedient to Christ. And for me, you know, that is what that looks like in executing in my business is, hey, Doubt, what's up, bro?
I see you.
You can't come in.
Yeah.
Not a good time.
I always tell people there is the emotion of fear and the spirit of fear.
Yeah.
The emotion of fear, emotions are not evil in nature. They're given to us by God.
Yes.
Survival.
Right?
It's part of our soul, right? You need it. Like, if not, you would just jump off a cliff and think there's nothing wrong with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there is healthy fear, and then the spirit of fear is where it's bad because it enables you to move forward.
Yeah.
So it's you acknowledge it, but you take on the spirit of courage, power, love, and a sound mind that Scripture talks about in Timothy, instead of that spirit of fear.
Yeah.
But realizing that, it's going to knock on the door. It's like almost like expecting it of like, no, this is a normal occurrence. I'm not special in a sense of like I'm the only one that deals with it.
This, yes, that's
I was actually this past weekend at Shoreline. They were talking about the story of Elijah hiding in the cave.
Charlotte Gamble preached that house.
Oh my gosh, that girl! She slaps everybody. Get in line. And she was like, Elijah thought to himself because he was in isolation that I'm the only one. I'm the only prophet. It's like, no, you're not. That's not even true. And it's anyway, we can go hold. Yeah. But what I love what you said, and y'all, I hope y'all took note of that. Commit to an execution, not to because the amount of times I've seen people just give up, just quit because it's not going fast enough. And it's because we do live in this era. It is easy, not easy. It is possible to go viral. Yeah. It is possible to grow your platform, but if that becomes your focus, like you'll miss out on you getting better. Yeah. And then two is like, you're not going to put in the actual effort that it takes to get that. So I honestly, I see this as a challenge.
Yeah.
For folks that really want to get into it, commit to 100 days.
Commit to 100 days. Like
100 day challenge.
100 day challenge. Do it 100 times. Just
100 times.
Or and do it. Like, I think the schedule of it is what works best. Like for me, it's like picking a day of the week or multiple days of the week to show up. I'm going to show up these days and these times consistently. It gives your audience something to expect from you, number one, but it also holds you accountable in a very real way on how to orient yourself to execute those things. So I knew that, okay, I need to create a schedule that is conducive to my video being edited and done by Saturday.
Right.
And I collapsed around that, right? So yeah, for sure.
That's good. That's so good, man. It's so practical. And it's so practical that most people won't do it.
Yeah.
Because they're like, hold on, what's the hack?
Yeah.
What filter did you use? What's the tripod? Send me the link. You know, it's like all this stuff that honestly just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, I'm building this out. There's stuff I want to add. I want to add more books to this bookshelf. Yeah. There's all this different stuff I want to do. There's, by the end of the day, I just need to hit record.
Yeah.
And figure it out. And and over time, things will get better. Things will improve. But the execution of it, I told Jason, I'm like, I'm an okay interviewer right now.
Yeah.
Watch me in 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm going to be a beast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just by repetition.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And I think it's also like, it's crazy because it's like, you have to trust God in that process too. Like, if you aren't getting those numbers, if your business isn't blowing up, if whatever you're expecting isn't happening, it's not because he thinks you don't deserve it, but the Bible talks about he has plans to prosper you and not to harm you, right? And it's like, maybe the thing that you're asking for or the thing that you want to see, you actually you're not ready to handle that yet. And it may not prosper you. It may actually destroy you, right?
Wow.
Because there are things that I have experienced in this business as it pertains to just infrastructure alone.
Yeah.
When it comes to running an actual business, that I had no idea it took this to do this and operate in this space, that a lesser version of myself would have fumbled. So it's like, trust that whatever is happening in your business as it pertains to social media or whatever, it's God's plan. It's his timing. So yeah.
That's so good.
Absolutely.
That's so good. Last question. I mean, there's so many different ways we could go about it. Again, the thing that I commend about you, from what I can see from my perspective, is you're a family man.
Absolutely.
Right. And it's funny that like social media is like sometimes the antithesis of that, of like, it takes more time from you.
Yeah.
Because, you're a student of the game, right? You're looking at either different trends or just, we were talking about gear, like just purchasing different gear. And I mean, it's work. It is not just like, I'm playing, like it's work. And like, if you're on social, like, maybe there's parts of it that's like, you're just for entertainment purposes, but probably a lot of it is like research or, different things like that. Mm-hmm. And like, it's tough. I found people who are in the content creation space have a hard time turning it off.
Yes.
What has helped you in finding that rhythm, that balance, especially to prioritize your family? Because that, again, social media is a distraction for someone that's not even their job, but for someone that is their job, how have you found that rhythm? Yeah,
I think it really is tough to start. Like it's hard to find that rhythm and create proper boundaries. I think you've been an entrepreneur for 10 years, right? And I would imagine that being an entrepreneur, being the owner of a business, it's hard for you to not think about ways to optimize, about ways to move the ball forward, about ways to make it better, right? Yeah. Naturally, I think that's the entrepreneurial space.
Yeah.
When it comes to social media, because it's where I work and play, right?
Yeah.
It's very tough to turn it off. And I also I have a studio in my house, so I work at my house.
Yeah.
So what I've come to realize is that I have to put the proper time boundaries on working and social media, because I do more, like I'm more of a researcher when I'm consuming content.
Got it.
It's not just like this objective, like, oh, let me just
just scroll
to enjoy it. Like it's like, oh, like there's a strategy that he's taking. Oh, what's that font right there? What's he like? There's all of these thoughts. Excuse me, that are kind of like going through my head. So what I've learned to do is to give myself transitional time, because what I used to do is like work, and then open the door from my studio, kids are home, wife's there, boom, I'm in like straight dad husband mode. Like, I've had zero time to transition, and sometimes I would try to like steal that time back by let's scroll a little bit, let's let's scroll to just like enjoy it. But what I've done now is I will stop, like have a hard stop, and I'm not perfect at it at all. I would have a hard stop of when I'm done working.
Yep.
And like it's like an hour and a half before the kids get home of this is my time to go from, working to whatever you want to do in this hour. Is yours. Do that before the kids get home. Because for some people, like that is like, oh, my commute from work to home is like that's the transitional time for them.
Right.
When there's a door between you and the rest of your life, it's it's harder to do that. So for me, I've like had a hard stop at a certain time to create that hour of buffer to make sure that I can do what I want. I feel like I have enough agency. I have enough time to do whatever I want. And then when the kids get home, and when my wife is home, I'm fully present there. I can play. I can contribute. I can be fully present without distractions. I put this thing away, and it's like trying to continuously build that habit up is how I try to create the proper boundaries around social media.
I love that. And I feel like part of it starts with honesty.
Yeah.
Of like being honest with yourself of like, it's addictive. If I'm not careful, I will go down this path and get suckered into it, not be fully present where I need to be. And just almost like that honesty kind of helps you to like figure out a plan and a rhythm that works for you. Because like what works for you is probably not going to work for somebody else.
Absolutely not.
But it's like the principle is be honest with yourself and find that moment that you can reprieve, recharge, and then be present.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like the beauty of entrepreneurship in this space is like all of the variables that I have, they're so movable.
Right.
Outside of like the things that aren't like my kids get home at a certain time. My wife is there is done working at a certain time. So it's like those things aren't movable, but like as it pertains to work, like I can play around with what works, and I think that's a gift and a curse because it's like you have to. It's up to you to structure how you want to structure, but it's like it's also up to you to create the boundaries that you need. So
and honestly, I'll say this last thing. I actually think, I was always told before I started my business, they're like, you have no idea how blessed you are to not be married, not have kids, not have a mortgage. This is the perfect time, and I do agree with that. Like in so many ways, like. I'm putting my head down with Faith Hustle, and I'm like, all right, I'm pushing it because I can, right? I have the margin to. But in so many ways, I actually feel that the opposite of like, there's an advantage to being married and having kids. You have laser focus.
Yeah.
You only have a certain amount of time, so you can't distract it because sometimes we think unlimited time is like the gift, but like sometimes it's like no, like. What can you do in the limited time? Because there's so much wasted time in the unlimited time. Yeah. So it's like, no, like I only have these hours, so I'm going to prioritize this. I'm not going to take meetings that are a waste.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take phone calls that are a waste. I'm not going to take projects that are a waste. I'm going to focus on exactly what I need to do.
Yeah.
And I found, honestly, there's a statistic out there of like those who are actually like billionaires or whatnot. Most of them are married. With children.
Yeah.
Because I think it just provides that needed discipline.
Yeah, I think that like it's crazy because it's like two sides of the same coin in a sense because it's this piece of there's so much I don't want to say pressure but like priority in making sure that you optimize the time when you have the time to do it when you do have a family when you are married because it's like the domino effect of what happens if you don't.
Like
I'm robbing my daughter of quality time with me if I'm not getting what needs to get done between these hours. But at the same time, it's like, it's kind of hard to live in that space constantly, right? Especially when, going back to content and social media, how fast paced it is. It's like somebody who can be shooting a video at 8 p.m., 9 p.m. at night, they have a bit of a competitive advantage because I can't do that.
Right,
like,
exactly.
I only have between this hour and this hour to do that. Once that's over, if I want to be a present father, I can't do that, right? And it's like, it moves fast. So like, they have an advantage. They have the capacity and the bandwidth to kind of think a bit more, critically, or think more freely than I do, because when my daughter's home, I can't be like, oh, like, man, that's a great idea for a video, let me write that down and expound upon that. In the moment when I get it, it's like, no, I'm screaming. This is not the most productive space to like flesh out an idea. So I think that like, not taking that free time for granted, but I do understand, how you have so much time that you can kind of be overly optimistic with, I'll just do it tomorrow. I'll just get it done tomorrow. And it's like that self-motivation has to come into play when it comes to getting those things done.
That's so good. That's so good. Okay. Last question for you. What would be if you have one piece of advice, one wisdom for someone who's a young Christian entrepreneur, they want to build God's way, right? They don't want to build man's way, the world's way. They want to build wealth. They want to grow, but they want to do it in a way that honors God. What would be your number one wisdom to someone in that stage of their life?
I would go back to trust the process and execution over results, I think. And that all boils down to trusting God. Honestly, I think, there's a space in which we begin to try to build what we want and what we think we deserve and what we prefer. And there's God's promises, right? And I think that as you trust God, as you're building, the anxiety of what is this going to turn into? Is this successful? Is this not? It's like it almost gets alleviated. And for me, it's like, I've learned to value how I feel executing things more than getting to an arrival point. That's right. Good. And I think that God has shown me abundance and gotten me to abundance without having to have the anxiety, because I'm not worried about the end result. Right. That's all because I trust him. I trust him no matter what's happening looks like. I'm like, God, I know you have me. I don't know what this looks like, but I'm going to define the situation based off of what you told me and who I trust you to be, not what's going on. So I would just say, as you're striving to do the things and to be productive and to move the ball forward in your business, you can relieve yourself of the anxiety associated with, is this going to turn into what it needs to turn into? If you're in alignment with his will, if you are in right standing with him, it will. So trust that and just cast all your worries and your burdens on him. His burden is light and his yoke is easy. So,
man, that's a word. Man, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming, bro. For real, the wisdom was next level. Appreciate and it, I am honored that you be the first guest.
Honored to be, man.
In season 2 in the new space, both after Sabbath. Man, appreciate you, brother. Thank
Absolutely,
you,
man. Thanks for having me, man. This is great.
Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Faith Hustle podcast. We hope you were encouraged, inspired, and feel equipped to walk out your faith hustle. If you want to come on this journey with us in growing in our business and faith, I encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, whether it be on audio platforms like Apple or Spotify or YouTube. We would love to take this journey with you, and we can't wait to see what God does in your business. We look forward to seeing you soon.